Hello and welcome back to another episode where we are playing Cities Skylines, and as you can see, the town we built last time is currently going up in flames, which I thought was quite funny. Looks like our fire engines are just about seeing to it, so I don't think that should be a problem for too much longer. And there we go, they've just extinguished the last of the flames. So this is the village we were building out last episode, along with our first fruit farms, and this episode I would like to build out another village, but it's going to be a little bit different this time, because I would like our next village to be a fishing village. And I definitely want that fishing village to have a ferry connection and probably a local train connection as well. In addition to that, we're going to be building out a country hotel and also a nature reserve. I would like to start this episode by redoing a couple of the things that we have along this kind of key collector road. As you can see, it's getting super backed up, and I think something that's not helping is having all of these houses connect directly onto this road. Really, there probably shouldn't be connections onto this road so that the traffic can just fly straight through. So I'm definitely going to go ahead and de-zone all the houses on this side. I do really want this side to be mainly just industry. And then I'm also going to de-zone any houses that are fronting onto this road. This will have a little bit of an impact on our population, but it's not too many houses, so it should be okay. So I think one thing we could have coming along this road instead is perhaps a bike connection. And I feel like that just gives these houses a little bit of space from the road, and then I think I would quite like a fence going alongside it too. We'll just make sure that we've got a few different connections into this bike network. And then I will go ahead and draw our fence along the other side of it. And finally, I think we could probably just do with a couple of trees to fill in the gaps. There we go, and that will hopefully improve the flow of traffic just a little bit from that side of the road, but let's not forget about this side of the road, where I'm hoping to add perhaps a couple more industry assets as well. While we were building out our farming area, we used all of the items that you can get in the industry DLC, but we didn't use any of the simply farming specialized industry areas, so I'm talking about this farming industry specialization, and I think it could be fun to just add a little bit of that in. Of course, I don't want those industry assets fronting onto this road, so we're going to need to build probably a bit of a frontage road for this to work. Oh, and I just realised I actually forgot to add the farming industry specialisation to that district, so I'll go ahead and do that, and then it might change them a little bit. Yeah, so this is the sort of building we want with these silos. I'm going to go ahead and make this one historic and this one historic. Is this a farming building? It says juice press. I don't know whether that's farming or not. No, it seems like... Oh yeah, it is. Okay, well I'll make that one historic, and then I might kill this one just to see if we can get a different building in there. Well, this building almost looks like a field, but I mean, I'm happy for that to exist there. And maybe these two are far enough away from each other that it's okay for it to be a small repeat, so we can make that one historic as well. And I'm probably going to upgrade this road to be a 4-lane road. Okay, so the next thing we're going to need to do is plan where we want to have each of these new areas that we're building today. So I'm pretty sure I want the fishing village to be along this bit of coastline here, and our nature reserve over here to the left in between the two villages. So I think we could start by building a bit of a key wall for this village where the fishing assets can sit, and then we can also just check that everything is fitting in nicely. So to do that, I'm probably going to need to adjust the terrain a little bit. I do want these fishing assets to sit pretty close down to the water. Okay, so we've built out our quay wall. Let's see how some of the fishing assets are going to sit along here. So it has raised that ground up very slightly on the other side, but I think I'm going to be okay with that. And then we will need to build out a fishing route for these harbours. There we go. And apparently they're already sending a boat out, even though I've not even connected these places into anywhere yet. The other thing I want to make sure there is room for is the ferry, which I think could come just in the middle here. And I will make sure that I draw a ferry path so that this is connected into the rest of our ferry routes. Looks like we might need to get rid of a little bit of land over here for that to work. And I think I'm fine with how that looks. There we go, so now ferry can now go all the way around there, and let's go ahead and edit our ferry line to include that stop. And I can imagine this ferry stop is not going to be very popular for now, seeing it does not yet have any power or water. And while we are in the process of editing our ferry lines, I also realised last time I forgot to add a ferry stop in a place I wanted to, which is just over here where we already have a bit of a transport hub where we've got a tram and a bus interchange. So I think it would make sense to have the ferry stop over this side as well. And I've added in this little park info booth as though it could be where you come and like buy your tickets for the ferry or something. But yeah, I think the last thing to do now is just to try and make this all look a little bit easier on the eye. There we go, I think that area looks a little bit better now. And we can go ahead and edit our ferry line to pass by this ferry stop as well. Let's let the game run and see how it figures out these routes. Yeah, it does look a bit weird in order to protect these rocks, but I think I can live with that. Another thing I wanted to do was just help this tennis club actually look like a tennis club by adding in a little info booth to it as well. I think this park info booth does that job pretty nicely. And then we can go ahead and add a fence around the whole thing as well, I think. And I've just drawn in that fence, but I think actually I kind of maybe want to see if I can squeeze in a car park for the tennis club as well. It looks like I can very easily, so let's move the park info booth back up to it, and then I can redraw in this fence. There we go, now that looks a little bit more like an actual tennis club. And these buildings have really been crying out for power and water for too long now, so let's go ahead and see if we can try and get them connected up. Okay, so I think we could kind of have the center of the fishing village be round here. We are going to keep building out these different piers along here as we unlock them. But for now, one of the assets that we are able to unlock is this fish market. And it's bigger than I thought, so we'll need to redo a couple of those roads. There we go, and I think, yeah, this market is going to be the kind of center of our village. There we go, and that will be the main road for now that leads down into this village. I think I would like to try and connect into the rail network, so let's try and think about that up front as well. There we go. I think that's looking a little better. Now let's see if we can connect into this rail line. I think we are going to need to tunnel a bit for this to work, but I'm okay with that. There we go, and now that is all connected up as well. It's been a while since we checked on our ferries, so let's see how those are doing. Unsurprisingly, no one is really visiting our last stop yet. But apart from that, there definitely 5 seems to be, more than enough once they've spaced out. So I do want more than one connection into this fishing village, so I'm also going to build a sort of little coastal road that comes around here from the village that we built last time over to this village. There we go, and there's our second connection into the area, which I can already see a car coming along, which is nice. So let's get some water pipes into this area. And power is slightly less easy to fix. I think for now we're just going to have to run an ugly power line along this road. Again, hoping to delete that before the end of the episode. So there is another industry building we can place down here, which is this fish factory. It is pollutive, so we are going to need to make sure not to build any houses near it. I think if we flatten out the terrain, we could make a good little spot for it just in there. There we go, that definitely looks like it belongs in this little industrial village, which is good. And I think I could be happy with just 1 or 2 small industry buildings here, probably only really wanting the warehouses. And this is exactly the sort of thing we were looking for, just these little warehouse buildings. And I think round near the station we could definitely justify a few shops. I think I'd probably like this district to be an organic and local produce area. We're not going to have too many shops and houses over here, the point is that it's really just a small village. But I think I would like just a couple. Let's see what we can get in just here. And I think we should make sure we have just a couple of park assets around here as well, just to keep the people happy. I think we could have a little cafe just along the seafront here. I think a couple of these park piers, hopefully they're going to play ball and say that they're connected. Yeah, looks like they're not moaning too much about that connection. We'll need to make sure that they are connected up with a path as well though. There we go. And this guy's complaining about not enough fish. And it's probably because these guys don't have electricity yet, so I think we're going to need to maybe zone a couple of more buildings just to run the power down there. And I'm very happy with those little market stalls appearing there opposite the ferry pier. I think that looks pretty good. And I think I'm also happy with this shop as well. Let's see if we might want to zone in a little bit more of this. Oh no, I was going to put a park in there, wasn't I? And I think perhaps a small food truck plaza is what could look good in here. I might just re-angle it so it's facing this road. And then I can draw a few paths around it as well to keep it fitting in. Oh dear, and this building has already abandoned from not enough workers, which does tell me I should start to build some houses out here. And this district I'm also going to apply the European suburbia housing style to. And I think that is going to help these little countryside houses look nice and natural. So let's go ahead and start building a few of those along here. I need to make sure that these guys have enough water as well, of course. And it looks like these guys have come in as little kind of fishy. What do I mean? Fish warehouses. I don't really love them all being the same. Perhaps I'll try and get a different one in there instead. And yeah, the idea with all these houses you can see is that they're all going to be facing the sea, which I think is quite nice. I am happy to have a few more businesses along the front here, I think. And yeah, this is more the sort of warehouse that I want, so let's see if we can get rid of this one. And I just went ahead and added another recycling centre because I think that looks pretty good in this spot. Might even see if I can squeeze another one in there. Yep, I am happy with how this is turning out. This is exactly what I wanted. I just wanted everything to look a little bit differentiated. Rather than just a kind of line of 4x4 vanilla industry, which you sometimes get. And I'm happy with these businesses that have filled in. They are all complaining about, yeah, not having enough educated workers. I wonder if we perhaps need to put a library in this town so these people can educate themselves a little bit. Because the library fits in so well with the train station, I think I do want it to live just here. Well, except it's really hard to centralise it. Maybe we don't even try to pretend that it's symmetrical and we put it over there, and then we add in a few paths here instead. And these houses should slowly begin to educate themselves, which should help them to be able to fill these jobs over time. We might have to deal with a few going out of business in the meantime, but I think that's okay. So as you can see, I have gone around and I've just been adding a few different details to our fishing village to try and make it look good, and I think it's all coming together. So I've added in a few services, I've added in a police station, a fire station, we've also got a little medical centre in the middle of town now. I also really like the placement of this cemetery just at the head of the road going up there. And I've chosen to stick to dirt roads for most of this town. I think the idea is that it is probably a slightly poorer town, most of the people working in the fishing port. And then we've got these kind of organic and local produce businesses along the front here, and we are going to be continuing to build out more fish harbours along here as we go. And I may also move the ferry to just in front of this fish market, I think. So if we come and look at the state of our fishing, at the moment we're just using this regular fishing harbour. The next two we can unlock, which we unlock pretty soon, are going to be an anchovy fishing harbour and a salmon fishing harbour. However, if we zoom out, you can see that actually most of the fish we have around here are either shellfish in this channel or tuna. But what I think I can tell is that the type of fish is impacted by the depth and the flow of water, and I can see that these anchovies seem to be in the shallower areas, so I'm going to try terraforming this river a little bit to see if I can kind of basically get more anchovies to appear, because we're not going to be unlocking shellfish or tuna for quite a long time. We need 2 million units before we get there. And okay, I can only get it to work for half the river potentially, because unfortunately this half of the river is outside of our map, but I think making this shallower does seem to be adding in anchovies, so that should be pretty good for us. I don't want to get rid of all of the shellfish, because obviously we're happy to have some of our boats come by and get this shellfish. And I have caused a lot of flooding by doing that as well. Whoopsie. And yeah, unfortunately the town is not that happy with their flooding. And I'll speed up time here just so we can let the worst of it happen. Though these people are all upgrading, I'm not really sure why. Apparently they like their houses being flooded. Looks like the worst of the flooding might be over, which is good news. And so it looks like we have reached our fishing target. So we've unlocked anchovy fishing and salmon fishing. So anchovies are what we've just managed to produce here. So let's go ahead and place down a couple of anchovy fishing harbours. And at the same time, I will move this ferry to be in front of this fish market building. Okay, so those are looking pretty good, and it also keeps these harbours looking a bit fresh because they're styled slightly differently. This one has unfortunately raised the terrain up a bit around it. Not quite sure how to fix that, but it's pretty minor, so I think we'll be able to cover that up with a bit of detailing. And now we can go ahead and draw out these fish routes, making sure with these two to stick to the kind of anchovy waters. This is now a very busy harbour front with all of these fishing boats going back and forth all the time. We are struggling a bit with workers over here. As you can see, residential demand is pretty high right now. We have been building quite a lot of industrial and commercial over the last few episodes. I will draw out a couple of roads just up this mountain and see if we might just add on just a couple more houses in this area perhaps. And it looks like we are almost in need of a little bit of sewage treatment, so I might see if I can squeeze in a little bit of that over here as well. There are quite a few tourism and leisure assets which we could consider adding in along here as well. I definitely don't like all of them, but some of them, like a kind of fishing pier and things, seems like they would make sense. This pier does look a little bit weird, but perhaps I could alter the terrain to help with that a little bit. I think that looks slightly better. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is build out kind of a country hotel on this headland. And we're going to be having the nature reserve part kind of go up behind it. But I think I probably want to just bring a little bit of terrain out here and build the country hotel facing out over the view of the sea. So I'm going to come and take a look at the hotels we have available to us. We do have a couple that actually sort of stretch out over the sea, but I don't think I want those ones. That isn't quite the style I'm going for here. I think perhaps this, the Breakers Hotel, is pretty much exactly what we want. I really like how that one looks. We have got one that's slightly bigger up here, but it kind of just looks a bit more boring, so I think I'll go for this Breakers Hotel. And I definitely do want to have a pier probably extending out from it, perhaps a restaurant pier. Looks like we will need to redraw that ferry route in order to make that work. There we go, and in the meantime we can draw out a few water pipes for this hotel as well. There we go, and it is of course complaining of not having electricity, which makes sense, but I want to see if we can place down a few more assets to make it fit in well first. And another thing I wanted to do was to give this area a ferry stop as well. And then that probably means redrawing in these ferry lines again. And I might need to redraw those ferry lines in even one more time. Okay, that took a lot of futzing around, but I think I have just about managed to build this quay out how I want it to. And I have been letting these buildings exist without power for a very long time, so let's just run them a little power line so we can at least get them up and running. And now it is time to go ahead and decorate the area. There we go, and I think that is a pretty good start to our country hotel. We may add a few more details within the episode, but pretty happy with how that is looking. So the next thing that I would like to make a start on, which we will probably not finish this episode, is to start building out a nature reserve park over in this whole area. The reason I say we won't finish it is because it does take a little bit of time to kind of level these parks up when you build them, but I think it could be a good thing to start. And I think I would definitely like to have at least one entrance to this nature reserve park over by our historic village we built last episode. I probably also want an entrance somewhere over by our fishing village, and perhaps a third entrance by this country hotel we just built. But let's start with our main entrance over here. There we go, we've just unlocked our first few items, and we're going to need to draw out this park to cover the whole area. Let's also come and get our entrance in over here. There we go, I think this small gate looks pretty good opposite the hotel there. There we go, and we can have a little side gate back in this corner as well. So I think the first thing to do could just be to connect some of these areas up with paths. There we go, now there's a nice big walking loop that people could use around this park. And let's go in and add a few of our first little items that we've unlocked. So we've got 2 little campfires and also 3 tents, so it seems like it could make sense to build out just a small camping area first. Perhaps over in this little area. There we go. I think that camping area is a pretty good start to the park. We'll definitely be building more things, but let's look at how many points that gives us. Yeah, 550, so people should start coming to the park and we'll be able to upgrade it once we've had some more visitors. So I had been hoping over the course of this episode that we would have managed to add a little bit more population by adding this village, but in fact our population has gone down, I suppose because I deleted a few houses over here in the beginning. I would really like us to hit the 15,000 population mark because that is when we unlock the crematorium, and I don't want to have to place down many more cemeteries because I just find it a bit unrealistic to have so many cemeteries around. So to try and bump up our population a bit, I think I'm going to build out some high density housing over in this area again, a bit like we did last episode, and I may not end up keeping all of this housing, but it is hopefully going to just help us jump up our population a little bit. And yeah, it looks extremely ugly, but I think this is all going to be temporary. I will almost certainly delete this very ugly high density housing as soon as we come back to work on this area again. And there we go, we have hit the population goal of 15,000. And yeah, here is the thing that I really care about. This is the crematorium. I think this large water tower will also be pretty useful going forward. And I definitely would like to use this old market station. That's a really cool building. But for now, let's go ahead and fix our death problem that we've had pretty much since the beginning of the city by building out crematoriums in almost everywhere that we have built so far. There we go, and I've just given us so many crematoriums, I think it would literally be impossible for us to have another problem with death. And what that also means is I can start emptying some of the cemeteries which I placed down just to deal with our death problem, and then once they are fully emptied they can also be deleted and we can replace them with other things that we kind of want more. There we go, and I think that is where we will leave this episode for today, having finished off our farming village, our country hotel, and having made a start on our nature reserve too. But I think for the most part next episode perhaps we need to move away from the countryside again and go ahead and do a bit more of a city, a suburb into downtown kind of build. I definitely want to start getting into the more high density stuff. But for today that is where I will leave this. If you enjoyed watching the video, please consider giving it a like or maybe even subscribing to the channel. I really hope you liked what we built today, and I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one.